on that. To my extreme right at the end of the stage, or your extreme left at the end of the hall, sorry, my apologies, the end of the hall is where you can find the OPPI Knowledge Zone. We'd urge you during the course of our evening, whenever you get time from the schedule, please do go and visit, and that's the perfect opportunity for you to know more about OPPI and, of course, the initiatives they've taken up and the reports. So thank you so much on that, and ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead to our next conversation. Well, now for our keynote address, we have with us Mr. Karthik Srinivasan, independent communication professional, who's going to be talking on the topic, the power of outside-in view in marketing. Let's give him a warm round of applause as we welcome our speaker on the stage right now.
Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you so much for the welcome. I have two confessions to make before I begin. One, I have zero pharmaceutical industry connection. I'm a complete outsider. So that's also probably the topic of the evening, outside in view. The second confession is, even being an outsider, I know marketing communication reasonably well. I've been doing it for 2 decades plus. I have to do my research on the industry and research on OPPI. So I actually did research in terms of watching the keynote address from previous years. It's all available on YouTube, by the way. And there seems to be a common theme of talking about cricketers, cricket and IPL. Last year it was Sachin and Sehwag and Chahal. And this year it was just about Hardik Pandya. I was very surprised they didn't speak about KL Rahul. That seems to be the hottest topic these days. He was given a dressing down in public and everybody has a leadership theory about it on LinkedIn already. It's the most popular topic on LinkedIn. So, but the confession is I have no connections even with cricket and I have no context to make about cricket at all, even though I already spoken about KL Rahul. So let me start with the outside in view. This obviously is the context of what I'm going to talk about. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. Let me ask a very simple question to begin with. How do you draw a crocodile? I'm sure you never thought about it. Why do we need to draw a crocodile at all? So if I ask you to just use your hands and air draw a crocodile, how would you draw it? Take a guess. Right? That's the one. So when we moved to a new house, my 7-year-old son back then, our 7-year-old son, he actually saw the white wall in the new house and started drawing on the wall. Of course, we were very upset. It's a newly painted new house we moved in, but he drew it. But I was very happy that he drew something because I asked him, what the hell is this? You have drawn something. He said, this is a crocodile. He drew it like this on the wall. This is a wall. So I said, this is a vertical thing. Crocodiles don't stand vertically. They are actually below on the ground. They are horizontal. Why do you draw it like this? He said, no, Papa, when you took me to the zoo, we were standing on a bridge. And from above the bridge, I saw there were a lot of crocodiles, and this is what I saw. So he was exactly right. He saw the crocodile top down, and then he actually drew a vertical thing on the wall. I've always seen crocodiles, particularly in Tinkle. There is a crocodile in Kalia the crow. We've always seen it horizontally. And that's the easiest way to draw from our perspective. This is how perspectives change. Now, the following video that I'm going to show you, it's a very illuminating video. You might have seen it. It's a fairly common WhatsApp share. It's very fairly common. And you might have seen it, but just observe what happens in that video. And that will probably set the context really well for what I'm going to talk next in terms of marketing. This is actually a blind beggar video. Take a look at that. I'm just guessing the volume is not playing. Oh, okay, they're checking. Okay. They're checking. There's no volume for some reason. It's there. Yeah?
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
In the first version, he looked at his problem from just his perspective. I am blind, please help me. Of course, he was getting some money because of it. But there was a lady who didn't actually give him any money, but she changed his board. She just took the board and wrote, I'm not able to see a beautiful day. And there is not even a call to action this. Please help me, there is nothing there. Because that box is there, that's the call to action, which means I'm not able to see this beautiful day, I'm sad because of that. Which actually puts the audience perspective on the board, not his perspective of what he wants. Now, let me ask you a very Indian question based on the exact same video. Assume your house is on a very busy road, which is probably any road in Bombay or any road in Bangalore these days also. And people park their vehicles outside your house very, very often. How would you deal with that problem? One way to deal with it is to have this. No parking, fine for parking, rupees 250. Do you think people will listen to this? It says fine for parking, right? But it's a big amount, particularly for two-wheelers. So what would you do? Yes, you should charge for parking. Instead of saying fine for parking, you should say parking fee, rupees 250. In the first one, you looked at your own problem. You didn't look at audience behavior. In the next one, in this issue, you look at audience behavior. Nobody wants to pay in India. Particularly a fee of 250 for a bike, nobody would pay. If it's a mall, they would pay. Outside a house on the road, nobody would pay. So that's your thinking from an audience perspective. Now let me come to the main crux of what I have, because I've spent some time with Flipkart, and this is Flipkart in the beginning when e-commerce was fresh in India. It was a very new sector in India. So what happened there is that Flipkart was 3 years old. It started in 2007, and by 2010, they wanted to have an advertising campaign to get more people to start buying from Flipkart. And they chose a 3-year-old advertising agency called Happy Creatives. They also started in 2007 in another street in Koramangala in Bangalore. Flipkart started in one street in Koramangala in Bangalore. So they thought, they are young, we'll probably understand each other. And their brief to Happy was, we sell books, we want people to buy books online on Flipkart. Very simple. That's what, right? I mean, that's what Amazon did, and Flipkart mirrored Amazon. We sell books. That's what they did. The result was this video. Just observe the video. In fact, many people may not even have seen Flipkart's first advertising campaign. This is Flipkart's first ever advertising campaign on which they spent about 3 to 4 crores. I hope there's audio this time. Yes.
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, lived a grandmother in an old house. Along with her lived her pet mouse. She and the mouse were best friends. They would do everything together. They would work together, and they would play together. They would even go to sleep together. But the grandmother had one problem. She had to read a new book every day. So every time the grandmother wanted to read something new, she would gently tap her finger over the mouse. And lo, books would magically appear at her doorstep. The people in the village were surprised by this. The villagers decided to try the same thing. But no matter how much they tried, they just couldn't get the books to appear. Soon, the villagers accepted that this must be magic. And so books continued to magically find their way to the grandmother's house. To her joy, she got to read a new book every day. The grandmother and her mouse lived happily ever after.
You don't need magic. Just log on to flipkart.com.
This is actually Flipkart's first ad. I mean, I know it's reasonably interesting from a mouse clicking point of view. They took a literal mouse and then morphed into digital mouse and all that stuff. But this campaign was shot in South Africa. Like typical big ad agencies, it was shot in South Africa. It was shot like a Disney project. They actually hired a mice trainer who trained 12 mice for this ad. And all that happened. And they spent enough money on this. But the campaign bombed. They had very different kind of expectations from the campaign. They thought many, many people will come to Flipkart and start buying books, but it just didn't move the needle at all. So why did it bomb? The brief was written from the perspective, like the blind beggar who said, I am blind, please help me. The brief was written based on what Flipkart has and what Flipkart wanted from people to do. It wasn't written from the perspective of the audience. This was in 2010, 2011. Nowadays, we have quick commerce, not even e-commerce, quick commerce. You think of something, you will get it in 7 minutes. We were actually making noodles yesterday at home, and my wife said, I don't have chili sauce. And if it was 10 years ago, I would have offered saying that I would actually go and buy it. These days, I'll get it on Blinkit, right? That's it, 7 minutes. So we have quick commerce these days. Back then, this was in 2010, we were struggling even with e-commerce in the first place. So what was needed was the other perspective. What is the other perspective of Flipkart's ad? Can anybody guess? This was in 2010, remember, early days of e-commerce. What was the problem then that Flipkart didn't solve for, but just wanted people to buy books online? What was the problem in e-commerce in 2010? I'm sure you have gone through that phase, right? Early days of e-commerce. Of course, connectivity was there. Connectivity was okay because if you actually look at social networks, Twitter and Facebook started in 2006 in India also. And so things were going fairly well from a connectivity point of view. But e-commerce was very different. We were used to the rediff era of e-commerce where we place a book and we have no idea whether we'll get a book or not, or whether we'll get our money or not. It used to take 30 days to deliver something back then. So we had a very different problem of the market sentiment did not trust e-commerce to deliver. Will they deliver? If they don't deliver, what will happen to my money? Those kind of questions we were grappling with. These days, we don't even think of all that. हाँ, return कर लेंगे ना, पैसा आ जाएगा बैंक में. No problem at all. These days. This was in 2010. This was not the problem that Flipkart was solving for. All they wanted, like the blind beggar, is we have books, please come and buy books. That's it. This problem was not anticipated at all. So, their realization, we need to sell e-commerce before we can sell books. They need to sell an entirely new industry. And Flipkart was instrumental in actually educating Indians about e-commerce in a very large way. Amazon didn't. Amazon just took the initiative that Flipkart built on for the first 5 or 6 years. They built the category themselves, and then they actually launched on them, and then they actually did much better than Flipkart eventually. Now, after this was established as the need, this was actually the outsider perspective, the user perspective. After this was done, the first step in the brief was you need to assert to people that you can trust e-commerce. How would you do that? Because there are many ways to do that, right? Inside Flipkart, there were 4 routes that they were discussing, saying, how do we make people trust e-commerce, right? E-commerce is just a new thing. Nobody knows how to trust e-commerce. How do you make people trust e-commerce? The first one was celebrity endorsement, which is very common in marketing. These days, it's very, very common in marketing. Just hire a celebrity, ask her to say something, people will believe you. At the time, we were looking at Ranbir Kapoor as a celebrity. If he says, I trust e-commerce, I get all my books, I mean, we don't know whether he reads books or not, but I get all my books on Flipkart, people may think, oh yeah, Ranbir Kapoor buys books on Flipkart, I'll also buy it. That was route number one. Next one was testimonials from satisfied customers. Get completely random customers, make them say that I ordered books and I got it in 2 days, it came on time, it came well packed. That was route number 2. Route number 3 was demonstrate evidence of Flipkart's trustworthiness. Why should you trust Flipkart? Because we have tied up with all the banks, you can get your money back in case something goes wrong, we have all the books, blah, 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 etc. The technology is up to date, you can save your credit card details very safely, everything is fine. The last one was a conversation between a believer and a skeptic. Someone says, I don't trust e-commerce at all. Another guy says, I trust e-commerce. Here's why, kind of stuff. So the fourth route seemed very appropriate for Flipkart at the time. But that was just a narrative device. This route was just a narrative device. Is that it? A conversation between a believer and a skeptic. What is a creative device? How do you make it entertaining? How do you make it interesting for people to see? This was the result. This you might remember more than the grandmother ad that you just saw.
वाईफाई मिला तो निचोड़ लेगा क्या?
Of course.
ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग. What you're ordering now?
MP3 player.
और कुछ फॉल्टी निकला तो?
Flipkart.com पे. No chance. और अगर हुआ भी तो replace कर देंगे.
Replace? Awesome. What's going to be your first song?
Ringa Ringa Roses.
That's a classic.
30-day replacement guarantee on all products. Flipkart.com, the online mega store.
So you still have a skeptic, you still have a believer. That was just a narrative device, but the creative device which made it interesting was children playing adults. Why did they choose the role? To say that e-commerce is as easy as child's play. That was an indirect. So it's exactly the same thing that they did with the grandmother also. The mouse wala stuff, real mouse, artificial mouse, digital mouse. This using children to infuse the idea that it was child's play. It's that easy. And they still use this technique. I mean, they still use this tactic after about 14 years. It's a bit stale now. It's looking a bit creepy also these days. But back then, it was a big success. And it changed Flipkart's fortunes. They literally sold an entire category, e-commerce as a category, using children as adults as a creative theme. Now, let me move to a completely different category away from Flipkart, one that is making news these days in a not good way. And I'm sure somebody from that company is also here, so please pardon me. This is a Cerelac issue that's making news these days. I'm sure somebody is there from Nestle. I'll probably meet you after this session and probably tell you something slightly better than this. So it's making a lot of news. Obviously, the added sugar is being questioned, and there are many allegations saying this is anti-Indian, blah, 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 etc. Quite a few bad news is happening for the past 1 week. And this is fairly new. This is 19th April, just 2 weeks ago. And then there's a response from the Nestle India head. He talks about added sugar is within limits. It's completely normal. It's based on the country level details. This is from SSAI. All things right from a PR perspective. Now, how would you solve this crisis from an outsider view? This is an insider view. He's talking everything right from a company perspective, saying we are completely above board. There is nothing wrong going on at all. You saw the report, but here is how I will answer that report. The brief, we sell Cerelac, we want more people to buy Cerelac. This is the insider view, which is what he's talking about. What is the outsider view to this? Trust in a new category versus trust in an existing category. Back then I was talking about e-commerce as a category, which was a new category. You need to build trust. Now you need to rebuild trust in Cerelac, a particular brand. Not just a category, because there are other products in the market also. But Cerelac is a particular brand. Now, how do you do that? Step one, you can trust Nestle Cerelac. Like e-commerce, you can trust e-commerce in India. You can trust Nestle Cerelac. What kind of routes would you take? Let me map the same 4 routes that we looked at Flipkart inside and look at it now for Nestle. Should you look at celebrity endorsement? Should you get a celebrity mother to endorse Nestle Cerelac saying, I have been trusting Nestle Cerelac for 60 years for all my children, all my grandchildren, you can also trust it. Would it work? I don't know. Should you get testimonials from satisfied customers, people who have been using Nestle Cerelac perfectly, normally there's no problem at all, and make them tell good things about the product? Should you demonstrate evidence of Cerelac's trustworthiness, or should you get a conversation between a believer and a skeptic? Should you do that? First, let me talk to you about celebrity endorsement. This is a classic template in marketing and advertising, and this has happened more than once in the past. Now, pardon me for the quality of these videos. These are really outdated. This is from early 2000s. Back when Cadbury's faced the worms issue, what was their #1 tactic from a marketing perspective? Pardon me? Brand ambassador. Who was the brand ambassador? Amitabh Bachchan. Take a look at this video.
मुझे आपसे कुछ कहना है। जिस काम में मनुष्य की अंतरात्मा उसके साथ ना हो, उस काम को करने से उसे सब कुछ मिल सकता है, मन की शांति नहीं मिल सकती। इसलिए जब कैडबरी वालों ने मुझे कहा कि उनकी बात मैं आप तक पहुंचाऊं, तो 55 सालों से कैडबरी खाने वाला मैं भी थोड़ा सा हिचकिचाया। मैंने उनसे एक सवाल पूछा कि क्या इसके बाद मैं चैन की नींद सो पाऊंगा या नहीं। तो जवाब में वो मुझे अपनी फैक्ट्री ले गए और मुझे अपनी इंटरनेशनल टेक्नोलॉजी, अपने कड़े क्वालिटी कंट्रोल्स और डबल प्रोटेक्शन पैकेजिंग दिखाई। आजकल मैं बड़ी चैन की नींद सो रहा हूं। अब आपकी फेवरेट कैडबरी डेयरी मिल्क नए प्योरिटी सील पैक में।
Observe the nuances. They don't talk about the problem at all. They talk about the sentiment, feeling that it's got a legacy. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Purity seal hai abhi. It's a very indirect way to say that we had a problem, but Purity Seal takes care of everything. Done. If you saw the template, have a crisis, get the celebrity ambassador to say good things about the product, move on. Coca-Cola, when they were in a pesticide crisis, what did they do? Exactly same template. Who was the celebrity? The video quality is even worse, but still, I'm sure you can make out.
पिछले दिनों कई लोगों ने मुझसे पूछा है कि इतने सारे विवादों के बावजूद मुझे कोका कोला पर विश्वास क्यों है, क्यों मैं अब तक उनके साथ हूं। क्या मुझे फिक्र नहीं कि मैं आपसे क्या पीने को कह रहा हूं? फिक्र है, बिल्कुल है। और इसीलिए पूरी तसल्ली करने के बाद ही मैं आपके सामने आया हूं। कोका कोला और उसमें प्रयोग होने वाले पदार्थ कुल मिलाकर 400 से भी ज्यादा क्वालिटी चेक से गुजरते हैं। इसमें इस्तेमाल होने वाला पानी 6 स्टेज फिल्टरेशन प्रोसेस से गुजरता है। एक नहीं, दो नहीं, पूरे 6 स्टेज फिल्टरेशन प्रोसेस से। और यहां तक कि चीनी जो कोका कोला में यूज होती है, उसे विशेष हॉट कार्बन ट्रीटमेंट से शुद्ध किया जाता है। आप जब चाहें कोका कोला की किसी भी फैक्ट्री में खुद आकर अपनी आंखों से देख सकते हैं। कोका कोला पूरी तरह सुरक्षित है, एकदम सेफ। तो जब भी मन करे बेफिक्र होकर पीजिए और एंजॉय कीजिए।
If I play these videos back to back, you would think that's almost like a written template. First shot, the celebrity has to talk to the audience in a very personal, direct manner. Next shot, he should be taken to the factory. Third shot, he should look very serious in front of a beaker and say, yeah, fine, it looks fine. And the same shot should have doctor-like people wearing white coats. All inbuilt to infuse trust, basically. And the last shot, he consumes the product. Exactly same template. The problem is, this is from early 2000s. It won't work in India anymore at all. We don't trust celebrities as much as we used to do back then. Why? Social media. Every celebrity can be questioned, will be questioned, can be abused, will be shamed. It's a complete change. There was no social media back then during the worms crisis. It would have been a far worse crisis if there was. There was no social media. Now, social media. It has completely changed the communications landscape. So celebrities won't work. No matter who you hire, it just won't work at all. What else can work? This is from Maggie. Remember Maggie problem they had? This is, of course, this actually predates the Maggie-led crisis. They have been doing this campaign from 2010 itself. This is customer testimonials. They asked for me and Mary Maggie, asked people to write about Maggie. Many people wrote, and they actually did a follow-up exercise after the lead crisis also, which also happened. So should Nestle Cerelac do that? Should they call people and ask for their testimonials? Should they do that? I don't know, maybe. Now let me show you a context from another crisis that's going on. This is from Kotak Mahindra Bank. Crisis, just 2 weeks ago, or just earlier this week actually, worried more about reputational damage than financial. And he puts a price for financial, but there is no price for reputational at all. Back of the envelope math would tell you the impact will be 300 to 450 crores financial damage, but not reputational. RBI has placed some clamps on Kotak Mahindra Bank. He's not able to put a value to reputational damage, but he's able to put a value to the financial damage. Reputational is long term. Now the first question is, if the insider view is that you want to get over the crisis as Nestle Cerelac and sell more Nestle, what is the outsider view to that? Anybody? If you are an outsider to Nestle Cerelac, what will be the outsider view to change the brief? Instead of saying, I want to sell more Cerelac, what is the outsider view? It's obvious, I told you earlier, that you can trust Nestle Cerelac without worry. That's the outsider view. But how do you go about doing that? Now Flipkart, when they actually found out that we sell books is not the brief we want, we sell e-commerce as trustworthy is the point that they want to make in their campaign, it didn't come from the sky. It came from market research. It came from listening to people, asking people around, saying, do you trust buying books online? They said, online? I don't buy anything at all. Forget books. And then one question led to another, and people realized that Flipkart people realized that people don't trust e-commerce at all in the first place. So we need to sell e-commerce. So the first question for Nestle Cerelac is that, are you seeing the market sentiment turn against your product or not? There are enough signals to actually know that. Are the sales going down from a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis? Is there a change? Are the sales of competing product which talk about sugar content as being less increasing? Those are the signals that you would actually get to understand whether you need to solve a problem or not, or this problem will just pass off. I'm not sure how prevalent this sugar-related issue is. Of course, there are a lot of issues around ingredients. Read the product pack, read the ingredients. There is a lot that's happening, particularly on the back of Bonvita, which has now been demoted from a health drink to a functional drink. I have no idea what a functional drink is. Even water is functional drink. Bonvita is also a functional drink now. It's not a health drink anymore. I mean, as if earlier it was a health drink, it was Taiyari Jeet Ki. Now I don't know if it is Taiyari Jeet Ki or Taiyari Failure Ki. I have no idea what it is now anymore, because it's a functional drink. No more health. So the first point is to understand as an outsider, does Nestle Cerelac actually has a problem in terms of trust or not? For that, you need to ask people, you need to listen to people, you need to listen to the signals from the market. Are people voting with their wallet, saying that we don't trust the product anymore at all? If that's the case, then only you can only choose which of the 4 routes you want to take, or is there a different route you want to take. That's the outsider view, and that only an outsider can probably give you. He will probably tell you, or she will probably tell you, go and ask people outside. Don't make your own judgment saying sales are going to go down. Are they going down or not? Are people trusting it or not? That's the first thing that you need to do. That's where the outsider context really, really helps. And this is actually from lessons from Maggie from the same article. It says the rhetoric around the allegations need to be scientific and mature instead of hyperventilation of emotions. This gentleman also, Prabir said the same thing. You need to take the hard decisions, but for that you need to look at the larger picture. If you don't look at the larger picture, you're just stuck in your own picture, you won't be able to see it at all. So you need to come outside your comfort zone, only then you will be able to look at that. That's all I have for you today. Any questions, please, before you clap? Any questions from an outsider point of view? Or an insider point of view? You're all insiders, I'm the outsider. Anyone? Yes, please.
Yeah, hi, this is Divakar from Novo Nordisk. The outside view which you spoke about, the consumer view,
Yep.
how you feel pharmaceutical companies can bring in more operationally to drive business? What's your view?
Got it. So, as I said, I'm an outsider of the pharma industry, and I'm actually a voracious consumer of news. I skim about 22 newspapers every single day. Skim, not read. There's a big difference between read and skim. If I read, I'll probably need the entire day to read 22 newspapers. Skim, I'd probably just need 1 hour. And as an outsider, I look at things that there are some issues from a trust point of view. For instance, the eye drops issue, it was actually a chain reaction from one brand to another brand to another brand. The same thing is happening with the spices, which is not to do with pharma industry, but spices industry, that's the same thing that's happening. So I think there's an industry-wide problem from a trust point of view. They probably don't trust. And also on the back of the recent COVID vaccine issue that came up all over again, saying there are some adverse side effects, people don't trust it, and etc. Even though it was perfectly trustworthy and we all had shots 1, 2, 3, and everything was fine, but there were some adverse issues. So I think it's a trust problem to solve. And organizations like OPPI have the steering command to solve for the trust issue. It's not a product-centric issue. It's not a specific product range issue either. It's an industry-wide issue. If people don't trust any health drink, all health drink will fail. It won't fail overnight. It will take time. It will be a slow, painful death. So I think even with the pharma industry, I think it's a trust issue that needs to be solved first. And for that, you need to understand and listen to people. Do they really trust, or are they just buying it based on or kuch option nahi hai, that's why they're doing it. Because obviously there is really no option. If the doctor says, please consume this medicine because you have this problem, they will do it. There is no point saying, no, I don't trust this medicine at all. They will still do it. But there are some larger issues here. Do they really trust? Do they trust particular brands more? Do they trust all brands more? Of course, the Patanjali issue became much bigger than what it was started with. It started as a small, misleading advertising issue. But now the Supreme Court is going after every single FMCG company advertising, and also influencer advertising. I'm not sure whether that's the perfect answer, but this is actually fairly generic answer. If you want to change the status quo, you need to listen to people and listen to the uncomfortable truth and act upon it so that you can actually disrupt. The point about disruption is, if you need to change something, you need to remove the old and put something new in it. And taking something old is always painful, but it has to be done. There is no other option to do that. In fact, Prabir said the same thing. He was in employment for a long time, and then when he had to move, he had to actually take that risk saying, kaisa hoga? But he took that risk. So you need to remove the old to put something new. If you don't remove that old, both will actually stay at the same time. It will be a mess. So you need to change it. Any other question? Yes, please.
Hi, this is Sanchit from Gilead. With the advancement in technology and talking about solving, the trust issues, do you foresee, more of immersive advertising with, use of AR, VR, and making the person transported to the factory themselves and seeing, feeling, believing? Could be happening in maybe a year or two?
Can do. In fact, I would give you a good example of ID Batter from Bangalore. They did this, I think, last year or 2 years ago when they were facing a WhatsApp, like a very maliciously done WhatsApp forward. That ID Batter has bones, powdered bones, and some nonsense, etc. It was complete rubbish. But they actually did something quite different. They actually put cameras in all their factories and live streamed the batter making process, entire live stream. You can just go to that ID, that QR code scan, get a URL. You can actually see the video being done. Of course, you won't understand what's going on. It's a big factory where just all you see is white batter and people wearing coats and whatever happening. But it just gives you a feeling that they are being 100% transparent. So they've already done that. That was just a 2D video. You are actually taking to the next level. You are actually using AR, VR to make it look like that person is walking in the field itself. Like Amitabh Bachchan, you can actually be the person walking across. It's just one incremental way to add trust. Whether it will work on the long term or not, I have no idea. But it's a good starting point because ID did that and they turned the tide against the malicious WhatsApp forward. It did work to some extent. they actually repeated it the next year also, just to build trust that we are fully 100% transparent, we have nothing to hide at all. So it might work. The problem is we are facing something far worse called AI today. And with AI, you can create anything in few minutes with just few text prompts. So you don't know what anybody would actually infuse the opposite side saying this is all false, this is the truth. We have no idea about that. We will probably worry about it tomorrow. Yeah. Any other question? One last question, perhaps? Anyone else? Nope? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.